Nurture the spirit, grow in community, help heal the world, and we have a concert today. So there's a lot going on, and I hope that you see the vitality and vibrancy of this congregation returning to you. We extend a very warm welcome if you're here for the first time today. We hope that you will see that we have created a space to welcome you, no matter what your gender identity, no matter where you're from, what your faith tradition, who you love. We hope that you will feel our intention to welcome you into this space. Lori is our membership coordinator, and you can speak with her if you're here in person following the service, or if you're online, you can find her at membership@firstparishinportland.org, and she can tell you more about our congregation. Every week, we acknowledge that we are existing, working, playing on the lands that were stolen from the Wabanaki Confederacy. And it's important that we recognize that the Penobscot, the Passamaquoddy, the Micmacs, and the Maliseets were here long before we were, and it was illegal and genocidal how their lands were taken from them. And we hope to have an ally relationship with them to restore right relationship. And we acknowledge that an acknowledgement is not enough. Everything that we do needs to restore and heal that relationship. And part of our service today is about doing just that. Please remember that there are always candles on either side of the meeting house for you to light your candle for a joy, for a sorrow, to invite the power of people together to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to always serve the greatest good. Today is our intergenerational service for May, and whenever we have an intergenerational service, there's a little bit more movement, a little bit more explanation to help our youngest know what it means to be in a full worship service. So please join in the movement and enjoy. It is happy, healthy, and vital for all of us to get about and enjoy ourselves. I want to invite Bill to tell us about the status of the raffles. Just so you know, I sold all my first 20 and I got 10 more. I'm going for that sold the most prize. I'm not sure what it is.
Anyway, when I first spoke to you here at the beginning of the month, beginning of April, when we opened up the raffle, I asked you one question, and that was, what could you do to help? And that is to everyone sell 10 tickets. If we can do that, we're really going to be home free. And our best gauge of where we are right now is how many tickets I've given out to you folks to work with, because you've been doing a beautiful job with them, and we're over 1,000 out in your hands. So we've got about another 1,000 to go, and we've got time to do that. So come up and pick some up. For those of you who are at home and haven't been into church to pick up your tickets, I've sent emails to all of you who haven't been able to. And my point in doing that is that I can mail tickets this year. It's a different rule in the state. So let me know if you need the tickets, and I can mail them to you and get them off to you. So this is our kind of our last chance in the budget cycle to get some extra revenue coming in, and we can do this. Let's get it done.
Yay! Lynn, come on up and tell us about the maypole.
Well, happy May Day to everybody. This is indeed, yes, cheers. Spring is here. I noticed when I drive down the street, there are all these forsythia and daffodils coming up. Hooray. So today is a bit of a complicated Sunday. We've already been told how much so. I have been asked to do a maypole in the garden, and coffee hour is going to be in the garden, that away. At the same time, we have Bill trying to sell tickets over here, and we have the March for the Poor, or whatever it is. That's not quite the same, I'm sorry, but anyway, also People's March also has an exhibit and things that they are doing in the parish hall. So you have this complicated choice about whether to come first out to the garden and see about maypole dancing, or first stop in the parish hall and then come to the garden. Coffee hour will be in the garden. One of the things that happens when I'm asked to do a maypole, which I'm happy to do, is that people say, oh, that's nice, but they don't dance. And so I'm there all by myself with a maypole. So you'll dance? All right, we got one, and my husband will. We got a few. But it'd be nice if you came out and gave it a try. It's quite simple and joyous, and you will have seen pictures of it all your life and never actually done it. I will teach you. It's simple to do. I've done it with kindergartners, and it's helpful if you know your right from your left, but not mandatory. So at the end of the service, at the postlude, we will have some garlands of flowers that you can walk through the tunnel to go outside, or if you want to go to the parish hall there, and then end up in the garden, because that's where coffee hour will be. Hope I'll see you there. Thanks.
And finally, Jeff, would you come up and give us a few details on the concert this afternoon? This is a fundraiser for Ukraine.
Oh, next week.
What? Oh, sorry.
This is the first Friday one.
Oh, sorry.
No worries. Good morning. I am the last of the pop-up ads before you actually get to your webpage. My name is Jeff Logan. I'm a longtime member here at First Parish. I am also the executive director and one of the co-pastors at Grace Street Ministry, which is a small homeless outreach ministry here in Portland. We spend 3 days a week out in the community, bringing socks, dunking cards, a variety of other things, and also partner with Preble Street to deliver food at 5 places around the city to the unhoused. Hi, Jess. But what I'm really here to do is not to talk about the unhoused, but to invite you to not the concert this evening, not to the Maypole Dance, not to the Poor People's Campaign, but to yet another event here at First Parish on First Friday, this coming Friday, the 6th. There's going to be a concert from 5 to 8. An extraordinarily generous musician, Mark Belanger, who plays under the name The Last Optimist, and his partner in sublime crime, Susan Levine, will be serenading us with a message of hope, whose proceeds will go to benefit Grace Street Ministry. Although Mark and Susan are largely interested in bringing attention to the problems with mental health care here in the U.S., they agreed to share their proceeds with us because they understand that the unhoused suffer disproportionately from under or untreated mental health issues that are often masked by self-medicating with street drugs. But this is not a concert about darkness. As Mark says, quote, "I perform this music and poetry to lift people up, to let them know that they are not alone, and to build empathic allies all around." And your $10 suggested donation for this wonderful concert will go a long way toward helping the pastors of Grace Street bring small material things to the unhoused, whether it's shoes, coats, Dunkin' cards, med copays, etc., but also to bring the hope of healing in all the areas of human suffering: physical, psycho-emotional, and spiritual. So please, come out to some or part of this concert this coming Friday the 6th. As Mark says, come join us and immerse yourself in both the inky black water and light that comes before the dawn. For as the old saying goes, it is always darkest before the dawn. Thanks for your attention. Enjoy the service.
Thank you for your ministry, Jeff. And so there is another concert today as well. So 2 o'clock today or 5 o'clock next Friday. Today is to support the people suffering in Ukraine, and the money is going to our Unitarian Universalist Service Committee. So we hope that you'll come enjoy the music, both events, and not only have some fun and enjoy music, but help worthy causes. Thank you. Now, I would like to invite you to enjoy the prelude, and I'm very honored that we have Dorothy Van Dyne here as a visiting organist. So be sure to greet Dorothy following the service and enjoy her music during the service. Each Sunday, we come together in an attitude of openness, not knowing quite what will happen, yet daring to be prepared to receive a new idea, a new experience, sustenance for our minds and our hearts. We come with an attitude of praise, expressing our thankfulness for the good that has come into our lives.
We come to say thank you for having a place to come and to remember what we like about coming.
We come in an attitude of humility, knowing how much we need another, one another, how alone we can be in the world, how vulnerable if we face life solely by ourselves.
We come because we do not know everything, and we think we can always learn how to be a better person. When we feel safe, it is easier to ask questions or to say what we think without worrying that anyone will laugh or make fun of us.
We come in the spirit of love, seeking human warmth and fellowship in the hands and the faces of those around us.
We come happy to see people we know who know us. When we see the same people week after week, we learn who they are, and they are special to us for being themselves.
We come in a spirit of joy, seeking confirmation and renewal of life and of hope.
We come to church and listen and participate. We feel happier, more content, and fuller right here in our hearts, and are glad we made the effort to come.
Thank you for translating the adult language.
My pleasure.
Now I invite you to share. I chose especially for today the most traditional, well-known, sort of the anthems of Unitarian Universalism. So I invite you, we're going to have Dorothy play each of our hymns through once so you can know the tune, and then we will join in singing through your masks. So you may rise in body or in spirit to sing rank by rank. It's number 358 in your hymnals. The famous of UU hymns. don't you stay up and we'll share the unison chalice lighting in body and spirit above. Please join me. The unison words are printed in your order of service. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek truth in love, and to help one another, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Tobin.
Good morning. If we have any young folks who would like to come up and chat, that would be amazing. Otherwise, Elaine and I can take it from here if there aren't any young and willing folks who would like to come up for a time for all ages. So today we are talking about joining and what it means to join. And the reason why we're doing that is because we have a membership ceremony going on.
Yay?
There
Yay.
we go. So I'm wondering, what does it mean to join the church? I mean, aren't we all members if we're here?
No, you can come and sit in the pews or visit online whenever you want to. What I always tell people who are deciding to join is that when you experience something here that you think is worth sharing, worth supporting, worth engaging in, like voting and things like that, that's when you sign that book. Do you know the first person who signed that book? It was like 1720-something.
Whoa.
Like, people have been signing that book for, like, forever.
So if people join, then they can have access to voting, but really, like, what are some good reasons to join?
You don't think voting is important?
I mean,
Tobin?
it is, but like, what is membership? Like, why would people join this church, a Unitarian Universalist church, over other churches?
Ah, that's a really important thing. Because we want to make sure that on every Easter and every Christmas, if there is somebody who wants to celebrate those days but doesn't believe that Jesus was part of a Trinity and the Son of God, there needs to be a door open for them to come through. And without people supporting the church with their leadership choices, with their money, with their presence, there may be a Unitarian in spirit out there that won't find their way home.
So that makes membership sound pretty important, and joining sound pretty important. So today seems like a pretty important day.
It is a really important day.
Well,
And we are so excited to be having people join us today that found us, like, in virtual reality
So when's that going to happen?
right now.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So, here in this church, human beings have been gathering for centuries. Just like I was saying, 1723 or 7. They seek higher purpose, deeper meaning in life than they could find alone. And so we are so grateful today that we have people who have found their way to our door and have decided that this is a place they want to belong and support. The relationships we form in this church are based on the needs of the soul, needs that render each of us vulnerable and therefore reliant on each other's grace and goodness. As members of this church, we each pledge to be guardian of each other's spirits, to respect the ultimate privacy of each person's human struggle, and to believe in each person's inherent worth. Today, we are curious when we come to the church, wondering what we are going to do and learn. And I would like you to meet Pat Washburn. Would you come forward, please? Andrew Tufts. And Carol Larson. Pat, Andrew, and Carol, we hope that as members of this community, you will allow yourselves to know and to be known, to minister to and be ministered unto, to love and to be loved by this congregation. We hope that in difficult times, you will reach out to this congregation and that we will respond with our love and support. As members of this church, we promise to be guardians of each other's spirits, to respect the sacred worth of another's joys and sorrows, and to uphold each other's inherent dignity. I, as your interim minister, commit to being present with you in times of joy and sorrow, to be a guide to you in your spiritual journeys, and to support you each as members of First Parish.
Us. Even for those born and raised in this liberal religious tradition. You have spent some time learning about us and about Unitarian Universalism and have made the decision to join us in our mission to nurture the spirit, to grow in community, and to help heal our world. Real community can only be built by investing time and energy with each other. Although membership in our congregation does not require you to commit to a creed, it does call you to a moral and spiritual purpose. It also requires your time, treasure, and talent. We now invite you to share your words of intent with us as new members.
To represent this community's welcoming and affirming of each of you as new members, we have shared a rose with you symbolizing the freedom and beauty of our faith tradition and a welcome book about Unitarian Universalism. We will now share our words of intent with you. Will the members of First Parish please rise and speak the words in your order of service? We welcome and affirm you with joy into the life of this congregation. We promise you our support and our prayers as we share in the hopes and labors of this liberal church. In the bonds of friendship and love, we unite to cultivate reverence, to promote spiritual growth and ethical commitment, to minister to each other's needs and to those of humanity, to celebrate the sacred moments of life's passage, and to honor the holiness at the heart of being. We welcome you to this community with all our hearts.
You may be seated, and as soon as they're finished signing, then Eric is going to hit the great Stand By Me music, and we're going to help this young person with his truck by dancing around and letting him be just who he is. Hit it, Eric.
No matter where you go in your life, at some point you're going to need
Louder.
to stand by you.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, oh my darling, stand by me. No matter who you are, no matter where you go in life, you gon' need somebody to stand by you. No matter how much money you got, all the friends you just as long as your people come and stand by me. And darling, darling, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Oh, stand by. Come on, stand by. Yeah. Oh, when that sky that we look upon, when she tumble and fall on the mountains, they should crumble into the sea. I won't cry, no, I won't shed a tear, just as long as you stand by me. So darling, darling, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Please stand by me. Stand by me. And darling, darling, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Please stand by me. Stand by me. Oh, baby, baby. So darling, darling, stand. Oh, stand. Oh, stand. Stand by me. Come on, stand by me. Stand. Oh, won't you stand? Oh, stand. Stand by. Come on, stand by me. When the night has come and the land is dark, and the moon is the only light we'll see. I won't be afraid. I won't be afraid. Not as long as you, yeah, stand by me.
If you have not seen the video, that is a group called Playing for Change, who you can support. They play music, so each of those musicians were playing at a different place around the globe, from Amsterdam to Africa to Japan to China to Brazil, and it's such a powerful video to see all these people with their little things on, listening to each other around the world in all of their traditional dress, playing their guitars and it's fabulous. It'll warm your spirits. Marcy, the reading, please.
Whew, okay. It's exciting and nerve-wracking being up here. Ooh. All right. We touch this strength, our power, who we are in the world, when we are most fully in touch with one another and with the world. There is no doubt in my mind that in so doing, we are participants in ongoing incarnation, bringing God to life in the world. For God is nothing more than the eternally creative source of our relational power, our common strength. A God whose movement is to empower, bringing us into our own together. A God whose name in history is love.
Thank you, thank you to our choir and to Richard for his incredible leadership these past few months. Thank you. Draw the circle wide. That's the focus of Unitarian Universalism right now. Many of you have read Widening the Circle, which is the report of our appraisal committee, who assessed that one of the most important things we can do as a denomination right now is to keep drawing our circle wider. For the smallest to the largest, for all different sizes and shapes of faith, development, culture, and tradition. Draw the circle wide. So I learned about drawing the circle wide by going to a conference that happened every single year. It's been happening virtually for the past few years, but it's led by a minister, Jackie Lewis, and it's held at the Dutch Reformed Church of Middle Collegiate on 7th Avenue in Manhattan. And if you have never had the chance to go to the Revolutionary Love Conference, do not miss it. It was there in 2016 that I first met, he was then Reverend William Barber, and Sister Simone Campbell. And they were part of a powerful team of leaders from around the world talking about the intersectionality of poverty, labor movements, LGBTQI movements, climate activists, and they were talking about the fact that traditionally all of these activists and movements had been intentionally kept separate from each other. They had been intentionally forced to fight for attention, for voices, for authority, for resources, and none of them could gain the footing, the groundbreaking kind of momentum that it would be necessary for global transformation. So it was William Barber's creative idea to build on Martin Luther King's efforts to intersection these things, to find the way to bring them all together so that their power and their voices could be lifted and amplified. Sister Simone Campbell, you might know her as the nun in the bus. She is a religious leader, she's an attorney, and she's a poet. And she's had extensive experience with public policy, with economics, and with systemic change. She led 5 different buses across this country, Nuns on the Bus, focused on economic justice, racial justice, comprehensive immigration reform, and voter rights. She's the author of A Nun on the Bus, How All of Us Can Create Hope and Change in Community. So I met her in New York at this conference. The most important thing she did during that conference was she selected, I think it was 8 different people to come up, and each one represented, the 1% of the economic top of the heap. Actually, there was the 0.3%, the Jeff Bezos. So there's the 0.3%, there's 1%, then there was the 5%, then there was the 25%, and went right down to the very bottom of the economic barrel of our nation. And she introduced us to 3 women that she had met living in South Bronx, Sharon, Zoe, and Shefla. She'd met them at an ESL class with their children. They each had a full-time job. Their husbands each worked 2 jobs, and the 3 families could only afford to share a 2-bedroom apartment. 1 family in 1 bedroom, 2nd family in the 2nd bedroom, 3rd family in the living room. She shared with us the economic statistics of the time, which I've actually updated for today. 65% of our population living at poverty levels has at least 1 full-time job, 1 adult working full-time. 12% of that population are retirees, and 9% are physically disabled and unable to work. She traced back the policies that created the economic inequities right now back to Ronald Reagan. and his administration, because that's when the fundamental myth and structure of the USA and our economy was changed. And it changed from being a focus on community, which was strongly developed by FDR, to that idea of rugged individualism, the lone cowboy of self-sufficiency that's going to pull themselves up by their bootstrings. That's when teachers, childcare, low-wage workers, personal care attendants, all those salaries decreased. And business majors, financial advisors, Wall Street executives all went up. At that time, the lowest paid person in a corporation only was paid, the executive was paid 20% or 20 times more than the lowest wage earner in their company. Now, it's the minimum that an executive makes over the person who makes the list is 284 times. Jeff Bezos makes $200,000 a minute. A minute. The second thing that happened, the other thing I want to show is that that Horatio Alger story of that opportunity is available to anyone in our nation was false in big ways, starting with the Reagan administration. So the 1% and the 5% have absolutely no proximity to the Sharon, Zoes, and Shefflers. They have no idea about these people who are working so hard for so little. Poverty has become absolutely invisible to the 5, 1, and 0.3%. They have no concept. How could you when you earn $200,000 a minute? The second thing that happened under Reagan and his administration was the decrease of the personal income tax. It went down from 80% to 33% for those upper levels, which incentivized huge salaries. That's part of the reason they could increase to 284 times, because they weren't going to be paying a large portion of that back in income taxes. Today, an annual salary of $10 million that does not include the benefits or the bonuses is the competitive number to beat, 10 million. The most recent tax cuts, which we experienced after 2016, when they were fully implemented, moved those women, moved the top 1% forward by one step. And she actually had these people on the stages moving around, which is fascinating. And then the person in the 5% moved 1.5 steps forward with those tax cuts. The 5% person moved a half a step forward, while those women living in poverty stepped back 2 inches, 1 inch, 8 steps back. So the person at the very bottom moved 8 steps back, while the person at the very top kept moving forward. Wendell Berry asked this in his poem. What sort of economy would be responsible to the holiness of life? Can we demand reductions in consumption? The development of renewable energy sources? Are we willing to pay the cost of resources and waste properly priced? What is moral need redefined? What winning means to the competitive must be a moral victory, not a financial victory. Moral will be inspired, and that is our challenge. That's exactly what Martin Luther King tried to do in 1968 with the first Poor People's March on Washington. It was to gain economic justice for the poor people in the United States. And it started at the Southern Christian Leadership Conference and was carried out through Martin Luther King until his assassination, and then held up by Ralph Abernathy. That campaign was the first time that economic and human rights were demanded for the poor in America of diverse backgrounds. After presenting an organized sort of demand to Congress and other agencies, 3,000 participants set up a protest camp on the Washington Mall where they stayed for 6 weeks in the spring of 1968. Between January 1st and December 7th last year, 19 states passed 34 laws restricting access to voting. The Poor People's Campaign that was motivating economic justice got the attention of people who know who vote for economic justice. Martin Luther King was assassinated, many people believe, because he brought the economy into his fight for justice. And because that original Poor People's Campaign was a multiracial, interfaith effort, which meant it had power. It ended the separation of people vying for their own particular activism. It brought together African Americans, Asian Americans, Mexican Americans, Puerto Ricans, and Native Americans, all aimed at alleviating poverty, regardless of race, gender, sexual orientation. So after those 19 states passed those 34 laws, more than 440 bills with provisions to restrict voting have been introduced in 49 states. These numbers are extraordinary. State legislators enacted far more restrictive voting laws in 2021 than in any year since the Brennan Center began tracking them. More than a third of all restrictive voting laws enacted were passed. And in a new trend this year, legislators are introducing bills to allow partisan actors to interfere with election processes and reject election results. Did you hear me? This is not good trouble. This is bad trouble. While the U.S. economy has grown 18-fold in the past 50 years, wealth inequality has expanded, the cost of living has increased, and social programs have been restructured and cut. Compensation for CEOs, 278 times greater than for any ordinary worker, is catastrophically larger gap than anyone in this country could ever imagine. And as income equality has grown, so has homelessness, which we all know. Now, even solidly middle-class people cannot afford to buy a home. And do you know that in the state of Maine, there is no legislated requirement for people to create affordable housing when they develop, like those 250 apartments that are going up across the street. So it was expected that developers would do this out of the goodness of their hearts, right? Well, we have seen what the goodness of the heart of the 1% has done for our nations. On June 18th this year, thousands of people of all different faiths and consciences, from organizations working for justice, people directly impacted by poverty and systemic oppression, people deeply concerned about climate change, and people who are worried about the labor movement, and people who are worried about minimum wage, are all going to Washington. We will follow Bishop William Barber as he fulfills the promise that was begun by Martin Luther King of intersectional fusion movement, a moral revival of the principles that should and used to shape this nation. We will march on Washington for a mass meeting to witness and engage in nonviolent moral fusion direct action. You can learn more about this out in the parlors after the service. You can sign up, you can join to go with us. Who here is going to Washington with me? How many people signed up? And you can go virtually, or you can go on a bus. You can go down for the week. I'm actually bringing all my family and some friends together to celebrate my 70th birthday. And we're going to do that after the march in Washington. This Poor People's March, and so you can sign up there to either register for the online version, and Marcy and I are trying to figure out where there will be a communal place for everyone to join online together. It will either be here or at one of our other UU churches. So stay tuned for that. June 18th. I know it's Pride Weekend. I know there's Father's Day. Intersectionality. You've got to find room for it all. Okay? It's very much like the staff and I wondering about, Elaine, what you're going to do May Day, you're going to do Asian American and Pacific Rim, you're going to do a Maypole and new members? It can happen. This is our life now, right? So the children have to be fed, the garden has to be watered, the dog has to be walked, work has to be completed, but that does not mean that we don't show up when we're needed. We do it. It's not an either or anymore. It is now both and. You've got to feed the kids, do the dishes, make the bed, and show up for the Poor People's Campaign. It's not about one or the other. Because what's happening in our world right now is we have been complacent. We have been sort of lulled into an immobility because they don't expect us to rise. They don't expect us to be able to do it all. And we can. We can and we must. This is a moral imperative to bring back the focus on community, not rugged individualism that leaves a few people at the top. So, I am asking you to join us. Reinvigorate your love for your neighbor. Resurrect the national focus on communal care. Commit your heart and your practice to sustainable living, love, and respect for your non-binary, differently abled, different cultured neighbor. Get out the vote and join this moral revival, the Poor People's March, in thought, word, and deed. Václav Havel said, "Hope is a state of mind, not of the world. Hope, in the deep and powerful sense, is not the same as joy that things are going to get better or are going well, or the willingness to invest in an enterprise that is obviously heading for success. But rather, hope is an ability to work for something because it is the right thing to do." This is no time for a casual faith. It is time to know what you believe is right and be faithful to it in body, mind, and spirit. It is time to be awake. We are the makers and the keepers. Will it be heaven or will it be hell? We get to decide. So I invite you to rise in body or spirit to sing the second most famous UU song, "Wake Now My Senses," because this is our call. Wake now our senses. It's number 283, 298. The last two are my favorite verses. Before, offering? My order of service is gone, so. Please welcome the ushers and their request for your generosity. All your gifts are what make this a vital religious faith community. All your gifts of time, treasure, and money are vital to our staying relevant and strong. Thank you.
We'll be inviting you to join us in singing this song. And I have this vision of us all learning this song and marching in Washington to this song. Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah.
And this is really a marching song. We're going to be singing it a cappella. And so look at the, if you don't have the music, they are in the back and the side here. But it's easy enough to learn. So we'll sing once through, so you can hear the tune, and then we'd like you to join us in the chorus. In the chorus, we sing a total of 6 times, so you're going to know this by the end.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Our closing words were also written by Václav Havel. It is I who must begin. Once I begin, once I try, here and now, right where I am, not excusing myself by saying things would be easier elsewhere, without grand speeches and ostentatious gestures, but all the more persistently to live in harmony with the voices of being, as I understand it within myself. As soon as I begin that, I suddenly discover to my surprise that I am neither the only one, nor the first, nor the most important one to have set out upon this road. Whether all is really lost or not depends entirely on whether or not I am lost. Please join me in the chalice extinguishing words. Not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Now you have lots of choices. Maypole, raffle tickets, Poor People's Campaign, Maypole, coffee. Have a good time. Good trouble. And postlude. Oh, we can dance to the postlude.